Hey everyone, so I am here with a bit of a life update, podcast form or fashion, I guess you could say. This Tuesday, March 21st, I have to be at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning, and then I go back for surgery at 6:45 for a procedure called a pneumonectomy. They're actually going to remove my complete right lung. For my whole life, I've always said I had one lung, but I have both, but only one of them actually works. So that's kind of what I meant by I only have one lung. So it's my left one that actually works. And my right lung, it will inflate and it'll deflate, but it doesn't actually provide oxygen to my body. It's just kind of hung out there and did its thing, I guess. Growing up my whole life, doctors have said that lung has worked less than 3%. My latest scan I have of it, they said it works minimal percentage, whatever that would mean, less than 3% or zero. I don't know. Essentially, it does nothing for me. The one goal my whole life has been, let's keep the lung in there. Let's keep it healthy. Or let's keep my body healthy so it doesn't provide any issues for me, because you don't want to go through the risks of the surgery to remove it. Risks come with any surgery. Being under any type of anesthesia or anything can come with any risk. So the whole point of just leaving it in there my whole life was so I didn't have to go through the risk of the surgery to remove it, and we would only do that if medically necessary. So, the last few years of my life, I've always had this thing of coughing up blood, essentially, and it would be bleeding from internally inside the lung. So my body knows the lung does not work. So it essentially grows additional veins to that lung, and those veins are prone to breaking, bursting if I get in a coughing fit, or if there's excessive pressure put on my chest from sneezing, laughing, out of whatever it may be. 90% of the time it's from coughing. And over the last few years, it's got progressively worse and worse. In December of 21, so about a year and a half ago, I was hospitalized for about 11 days due to this. I actually coughed up a lot of blood, more than I ever have. It freaked me and my wife out, so we rushed to the ER, and then I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. Usually it's just been little strands of blood and whatever I cough up, spit, mucus, or whatnot. But this time it was like fresh, raw mouthfuls of blood. So we rushed to the ER. I'm in the hospital for 11 days. And they ended up doing a procedure where they could go in there and they could actually plug up these veins. So not only were veins growing inside my lung that can burst and break, my body is trying to find additional ways to supply that lung with blood coming from other organs. Like one artery, one other blood vessel was coming from my thyroid, or another one came from my spine as of recently. And so they were trying to plug up these major blood vessels that are creating excessive blood flow into my lung, causing or adding to the bleeding. It's like when one of these bursts, it's like a fire hydrant pressure of blood that fills up my chest, and I have to cough it all out. Luckily, by the grace of God, after a couple minutes of coughing up this blood and bleeding, it's always stopped, which has been a miracle in and of itself. I've never had had any blood given to me or transfusions or whatnot from losing too much blood, but it's come close to that. And so a year and a half ago, that was that. I've been good for the last year, up until about December. This year I started coughing up more blood, not as much as December of 21, but still excessively. And then I started going back for testing, and then they wanted to go in there and do a bronchoscopy, which is a procedure where they put a camera down your throat and actually physically inspect your lungs to see what's going on. So they went to go do that probably 2 months ago, and when they were in there working, they had actually nicked an artery in the airway of my right lung, and I almost bled out on the table, and I actually had to have an overnight stay. I went under that procedure at like 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, and they said they'd probably wake me up at 3:30 p.m., and By the time I woke up, I was on a ventilator and my hands were like cuffed to my bed, so I couldn't move and rip out my ventilator. And they say, hey, welcome back. It's 7 p.m. at night. You have to stay in the hospital overnight. So we had that stay. And then we had kind of just chilled from there. They sent me home. I went back to work, started coughing up more blood. Like a week later, went back to the ER. And then I had another procedure done where they went in there to try and block these blood vessels again. This time they couldn't block them because they figured out those blood vessels were actually, or the one that was bleeding the most is actually wide off and attached to my spine somehow. They were actually worried about blocking or filling that blood vessel up with the medical material that they used to block it in fear of paralyzing me. So I had a 4-day hospital stay a couple weeks ago with this, and they realized that they can't fix it. There's nothing they could do, and we know it's temporary. We know every time they go in there and plug it, my body knows then that blood vessel is blocked, so it's actually growing additional blood vessels beyond that. And so we knew it was temporary. We know this thing has to come out. So they have told me, they set the date for it, and we're taking it out Tuesday. And it's kind of a lot, to wrap my head around. All my procedures in my life have been kind of regular procedures. I feel like outside of my, open heart surgeries as a baby, but like my bronchoscopies and all this other stuff that I've had done, they seem procedures. There's really not many risks that come with them. But it seems like every time I have one of these procedures, I wake up and they say, hey, you almost died. In the last couple of years of my life, these doctors have told me I've almost died 10 times, from coughing up blood from the procedures I was in, just due to those lung issues in there. And then, so we're talking about removing this lung on Tuesday. So I got to go in there for that. I'm going to be in the hospital for 7 days. And then after that, probably chilling at home in rehab or whatever, for 2 months, at least like physical rehab therapy to get up and going, because they have to cut open my side and go in there and take it. But yeah, so there's just a lot going on lately. Figured it'd be easier to make a video than type, a whole story out with this. But it's crazy how God's worked in my life, through all of this. It's a miracle I'm even alive today, from my congenital heart issues as a baby and from my open heart procedures. It's just wild to see how he's worked through all of these years and keeping me alive and keeping me generally healthy and allowing me to do the things I do. And I know he's been with me through all of this. Again, there's countless procedures I've had where I've waken up, and they're like, you almost died, or I've gone to the ER for coughing up insane amounts of blood, and they're like, you could have died. They actually, last time I was in there, they told me, we don't know why the blood stops. When I start coughing and I start bleeding, he said it's got to be the grace of God, or I'm just the luckiest person on the face of this planet, I guess, where this blood actually stops. They see no reason as to why the blood stops when I start coughing, because when I was in the bronchoscopy and they hit that artery, the blood didn't stop. They had to cauterize it and burn it closed, I guess, whatever they do. But when I'm at home for some reason and cough and these things burst and rip open, it seems to stop by itself after 2 minutes. And my doctor said he has no idea, why that happens. And, I can only contribute it to one thing, and that would just be the grace of God in his hand, just on my life. And even just through these procedures and even through the medical craziness, lately it's crazy to see the people and the instruments God has put in my life. A crazy story. So, many, I work at Porsche. I've had these clients for years. Long story short, I just met this guy. I met him a couple years ago, but I realized actually about a year ago into our relationship that he was the one that did my open heart surgeries as a child back in Chicago. he had moved from Chicago to Florida, now back to Indianapolis. It just so happens that he is a Porsche customer of mine, and I'm a service advisor, and I am his service advisor. And after a year of servicing his car and being his friend, we realized that through talking that he was the one who actually did my surgeries back in Chicago when I was 2 weeks old, 6 months old. And it's crazy to see how an involvement he's even played in my issues and my medical complications that I have been facing even the last few months, in the last couple of years. He's actually given his personal cell phone to me to give to my doctor so he can play a role in decisions or maybe not decisions, but suggestions from him, from a guy that's been practicing. He's almost 80. He's been practicing forever. He's an alpha surgeon, and even getting his wisdom to the new doctors that I have. Just the crazy small world of him being in Indianapolis, I can only contribute to the hand of God moving in my life and overseeing all the medical conditions and everything that we've been going through. So it's just been wild. It's just been absolutely wild. And, a story from last year when I was in there in December of 21, I remember laying on the operating table. I wasn't under anesthesia, but they had me under a bunch of sedative drugs. And I'm laying on this table, and I'm pretty cognitive of what's going on. I was actually talking to the doctor. He was telling me what's going on. I remember almost every second of that surgery, to this day even, because that was the first major surgery I'd had since I was a small child. And I remember laying there, and I was looking at the ceiling, and they have all these crazy instruments and TVs and X-ray, whatever they got in there. And I just remember I was looking, there was this X-ray, machine above me, and it was just a flat white surface essentially. And I remember just looking at it, and for some reason I just saw this picture of this man holding a baby, and I just hear, this voice in my head and my heart, and it's saying, I got you. And in that moment, I was just really comforted. And it comforts me even to this day going into these procedures, as I really feel like God's just really prevalent in this, saying, I got you. And, going into this surgery Tuesday, to be completely transparent, I am absolutely terrified. The risks are bleeding out and death. I mean, hopefully that's not the case. And, it's 2023 and we have crazy technology these days. So I'm pretty comforted in the fact that, again, God's in this. We're in a pretty technology advanced age, and the chances that are, might be slim, might be a little more risky than others, but the chance of it still being there is there. But getting through that to continue the work that God has placed in my life and the people he's called me to love, and to be in Indianapolis and, share my life with my church and my friends and my family around me. I'm very much hopeful and looking forward to that. But yeah, still going, even with all this going through my mind, I'm still absolutely terrified of this procedure, on Tuesday. So my request for you is that you all pray. Just continue to pray. If you go to a different church or your friends and family, and you live in a different part of the country or a different part of the world, I ask you guys just to be in prayer over this. Because again, it's a pretty serious surgery, and I'll be off for a few months, and I'm really just praying for the doctor's hands through all of this and my recovery. Hopefully it's quick and easy, and I could be on my feet and back to serving in the local church and working and everything. So, but my prayer for everybody else, is that through all this, I could see God working in my life. If I were, God forbid, if something were to happen on Tuesday, my one request would be, give God a chance. Really go find a local church wherever you are, and go find people to surround yourself with and give him a chance. I know in today's day and age, God and religion is very far away, seems very distant. The world's a very dark place. But there's something real, there's something powerful within God and Jesus and the Bible and the gospel. So if this were my last message, which hopefully it is not, my request and my prayer for all of you would be that that God loves you, that he sent his son to die for you, and that he is worth more than anything we could think, ask, or imagine. And I would ask you to give him a chance. But that's kind of my life update. If you're viewing this, chances are you've played a crucial role in my life and where I'm at now. And I love all you guys to death. I cherish very much my friends and my family. And I love you guys. And again, be in prayer for me. Be in prayer for Kristen, my wife. She kind of takes care of me through this when I'm not able to do much. And you guys are great. And just be in prayer for this. Hopefully it's a quick, easier than he's anticipating procedure Tuesday, and that we could just be back on our feet in no time. Love you guys. See ya.